All right, welcome back to the Grizzly Brothers podcast. For the first time ever, I've got John in the studio. So you all know John from the hunting videos. We actually filmed a podcast back, I think it was last summer.
Was it last summer?
I think it was last summer. We went out
Feels like it was a lot longer ago than that.
We did a mobile podcast, went out in the field, did some ground squirrel population control.
Oh yeah, that was last year.
Yeah, and shot a podcast, and then we lost the footage. And that was the one and only podcast we've ever done.
Yeah, it was tough shooting in the field too. We had, pop-up camping chairs and microphones falling down on me. That's probably why you had it the other way, huh?
It gets heavy. You can crank that nice and tight.
Technical difficulty here. There we go.
Should work. There we go.
All right.
Animals, whatever. So we finally got John in the podcast studio, and I think it's timely because we're kind of last couple podcasts we've talked about last year's hunts, and you only hunted with us once. Just archery season, right?
Yeah, I was with you guys for the subscriber bear hunt.
Yep. And there's a funny story with that one. We will discuss that when the film drops. One of the craziest things I've ever seen. Just a teaser. John shoots a bear. And we've reviewed that footage 100 times. We've done like still shots of the arrow placement. On camera, it looks like that is the most perfect archery shot you could ever ask for.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it there. We'll talk about it more later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you did some hunts, rifle season, late season. So yeah, I just want to get your rundown.
Yeah. So we did the subscriber bear hunt. And the opening morning, I actually went out on my own while you guys took. I'm blanking on his name now.
Blake?
No, not Blake. The subscriber.
Oh, Nate.
Nate. Sorry,
you're
Nate.
talking about archery.
Yeah. I went out for the first morning on my own. Just went up kind of into a big basin and worked my way down back to you guys. And then we hunted basically the rest of the trip together from there. But I was trying to fill a deer tag that opening morning. And historically, we have really only hunted opening day, weekend, and a few days into the, first week of season. I have hunted the wilderness areas and the forest, public land in late season, mid to late season, with very little success. Not for bears, not for deer. I've just never really found where they go after that first initial heavy pressure push. What happens to them?
It's the great mystery.
Well, we all know they either go down and deep into dark country in the canyons, or they're just disappearing into even further reaches of the wilderness area that nobody can touch.
Or private land, depending on where you are.
It depends on how close you are to certain things. There's going to be a spot in every region that becomes a haven, becomes a sanctuary for them. And I've been up, areas that we hunt collectively together with really good success opening weekend, seeing lots of bucks, pre-scouting the season, seeing lots of animals. And then I go up the end of season and there's nothing. It's like a ghost town. I see a few does and fawns and that's it. But this year opening weekend of rifle, I went to a totally different spot, totally new to me. And I took my kids, and it's my kids are both 9 and 6.
So it's a whole different
It's
experience.
a whole different, well, we can't do the type of hunting that we do with kids of that age. You can't, try and feed your kids a mountain ops, backcountry freeze-dried meal for 5 days in a row.
Yeah,
it's not, it's not a great recipe.
Dad, where's the mac and cheese?
Yeah, exactly. So we truck camped right next to an area that had a bunch of roadless, a huge roadless area. And we'd hike in to a spot and get up and glass. We actually heard elk bugling.
Oh, that's
opening
cool.
morning, which was pretty cool.
That's
and
really cool.
The kids are finding elk turds all over the place. And so I did see one buck that was just a monster. I mean, legend status, kind of from a mile away. And I'm looking at where he is, the time, and I'm like, yeah, not with these kids. No way. If I was by myself, I'd go for it. But so I had to be selective and smart about the situations I potentially got ourselves in. We ended up seeing a bunch of deer, 0 bucks, and 1 bear the whole trip. We were up there for 5 days. Kids had a great time. It was basically a big camping trip.
How far did you venture into roadless area, hiking
So
and stuff?
the first day, and my kids are great. People wouldn't believe it if they didn't see it for themselves. They're like little mountain goats, and they followed me step by step the whole way. We went 3 miles in.
Whew, that's a good haul.
Yeah, but then hiked back out. So collectively, each day we did at least 4 miles. And
That's awesome for little kids.
And this is something that comes up, when you have little children and you're going out on a trip and you got a checklist of all the things you need. You got a jacket, you got this, you got that, right? Yeah. Well, check their stuff. Because my kid's idea of a jacket was a paper thin sweater.
Oh, man.
It was cold in the morning, so luckily it's not too cold for us men,
Yeah.
I'm giving my son our jacket, or my jacket, going, here, put this on. So he's it looks like a dress on him, but
Yeah.
he was warm, and I'm freezing my tail off. The other thing he forgot was his hiking shoes. So he was walking around in the forest for 5 days with sneakers on, like basketball sneakers.
So he's getting stuff all in there. And...
Well, actually, no, not really, because the area we were in was about a 10-year-old burn scar, and there was no grass, and it's mostly bunch grass up there, not the foxtails and not the stuff that we're typically getting into in like A-zone and the lower country and stuff. So ultimately, it worked out. It's just when we went up steep shale, loose terrain.
Yeah.
He was right in front of me, and I had him by his collar. And every time he slipped, it was whoop, and pulled him back up.
So there's a lot of things in keeping your focus off of trying to find a deer. That makes sense. Yeah.
What it really turned into was a hike with a rifle and an adventure for the kids.
Yeah.
But it's the introduction to it.
You got to do it.
You have to. Yeah. And so a couple years ago, I killed a little tiny, dinker, fork and horn, right off the side of the road. We were driving into a spot that we were going to basically do the same thing. And I think that was 23, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the year before. And so that was cool. It happened, it was right off the road. The kids could see the deer. They didn't really see the shot or any of that kind of stuff, but it was all like right in front of them. And it makes me laugh just thinking about it. The old show, The Kids Say the Darndest Things. The video footage I have of my daughter with her commentary over the buck, what kind of buck it is.
That's so good.
Oh my goodness. It is some of the best commentary ever. Like, we got a buck. She's telling me.
It's so matter of fact.
Too. Oh, yeah. And she's telling me, Dad, go get my knife. I want to start gutting him. I'm like, whoa. So it's, you don't want to ever force your kids to like something. But I'm just lucky that my kids love it.
Yeah.
They're through and through outdoor kids. And they love, my daughter especially, she's very interested in animals, the science of it. She's got a duck book. She's identifying ducks. They've been duck hunting with me this last season. And I bring a duck into the blind, and she's opening its mouth and inspecting all of its, features and all the stuff. Just super interested in the science side of it. So a future biologist I see in her big time, which is great. If she has that opportunity, I think that would be something that we would all want for our kids, to be involved in the outdoor space and in the wildlife management aspect of it. Why not?
Yeah.
Especially if you can make a living at it.
Yeah. Well, as a hunter dad, it's a sacrifice, but it's an investment. Like you're investing in future returns on hunts with your kids. Yeah, we did something similar. I mean, it wasn't 5 days. I think it was a one nighter, but I took the whole family up on a quote unquote bear hunt. You know, and we called in a doe. That was the extent of our hunt, but they all got to see it.
Still exciting.
Yeah, and the kids are waving at the doe and like, okay, this is over. But it was really cool to like that was their first introduction. That was their first introduction to an up close animal. They'd never been up close like that to an animal, so that was really cool. But it's a sacrifice. I'm not going to go kill anything. I mean, chances are super low.
Yeah,
but you got to do it. It's the investment of it. And it's a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun. So that was your rifle opener.
That was rifle opener, and then because I didn't kill anything, or at least didn't find anything that I shot.
Yeah.
During archery, I was sitting there with
allegedly.
Yeah. I was sitting there with 3 tags, 2 buck tags, and a bear tag in my pocket, and they're just freezer's getting low. You know, stock is getting low. You know, when the wife starts saying, "Hey, you need to go hunting again," you jump on that chance.
Oh yeah.
You go, "Yes, ma'am. I'm out of here." So, I have an old coworker of mine who is, you know, a little bit older than us. He's an empty nester now. The kids are moved out and everything. And so I messaged him. I'm like, "Hey, what do you think about going on a quick 3-day hunt way up north?" We went almost to the border of Oregon. We drove into Oregon through, you know, dirt roads. Actually,
it's up there in the Q zone, isn't it?
Yeah, Q zone, exactly.
Yeah.
No, QR zone, I think. It's anyway.
Scan for the location.
Yeah, right. So we take off on I think it was a Thursday afternoon. We boogied out of work early.
Was it right toward the end of season? Like what, last week or two?
It was the last weekend.
Oh,
of
last
season.
weekend.
Closing weekend of season for deer. Obviously, bear continues on in perpetuity because apparently we can't kill enough bears in the state. The season, we need to get to the point where the bear season closes before the actual season closes by dates. Yeah, where we're killing them by closed by quota.
Yeah,
that's got to happen here.
It's got to happen.
So, however we can assist in making that happen, because I'm telling you, as somebody who's grown up, I don't think there's a bear hunter in my family. I'm the first one that's ever killed a bear.
Yeah,
I've always been a deer hunter. My family's always been deer hunters. Now, since we've grouped up 7 years ago now, I'm a deer hunter with a bear tag in my pocket, and the opportunity for additional, sustenance, it's almost, why wouldn't you take advantage of that?
Yeah.
Every deer hunter in this state ought to have a bear tag in their pocket. And if you see a bear,
go harvest it.
It's
awesome meat. Yeah.
Everyone gets weirded out about, trichinosis and stuff like that. Just figure out how to cook it and grind it up.
If you're worried about it, just do all salami or something.
Yeah. There's ways around that concern.
Yeah, and totally.
They're abundant. They're in way more than abundant supply. So we gotta curb that.
Yeah.
As a community of hunters, we got to figure out how to meet this quota, and then pressure the state to increase the quota or allow people to go and buy a second tag.
Yeah, we're never going to get a spring season or anything until we start getting close to this quota.
Right, exactly. So anyway, back to we boogied out Thursday, went out, found a spot, got to our camping spot. Same kind of thing. We're right off the road, just camping in the back of the truck, and we're just going to do, go up to a glassing point, see what we can see, total lay of the land kind of thing. Never been there before. And we just happened to be right next to another big roadless area, and we got snowed on. I mean, there was a storm system that came through. It was cold, man. I was almost not ready for it. We had to build a fire when we were up on our glassing knob. We couldn't really see anything, cloud cover, fog coming in. So to kill the time and wait for the clouds to break, we built a fire just to kind of keep our hands loose. between the clouds, there'd be these breaks, and we'd glass for 30 seconds at a time. I mean, really quick openings. And about, I'd say 1,000 yards away, across the canyon, I spotted a bear, clear as day. Like naked eye, there's a black dot over there, totally out of place. There's a bear. So we made a plan. It took us about 3 hours to get over there, and we dropped in to that hillside where that bear was, right above the bear. It had fed its way up to the top, within like 100 yards of the top of the ridge.
So you're looking across a basin?
Yeah, we were. So
that's how you spotted?
Yeah, and then we just side hilled all the way around that basin and came down that same ridge that it was on, and it was below us. The bear had fed up while we were in transit. We lost sight of it. Trees are in the way, all kinds of stuff. The bear had fed up and kind of bedded underneath the rocks where we were perched, glassing that hillside that it was on. And my buddy that I was with dropped his canteen, his little Yeti, stainless steel canteen. It went ding, 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 all the way down the rocks. And that scared the bear. And it stood up. It was right below us, 50 yards.
So you hadn't seen it?
We hadn't seen it yet. It was right underneath us.
Oh, wow.
It was one of the craziest. We could have sat there for 3 hours, and that bear would have not gotten up and moved. And we would have not known that it was there.
How lucky is that?
It was total
That's
by
crazy.
chance. So, shot her. She went down and, died 300 yards lower than where we were. And got a lot of fat off of that bear. Old sow, really old. Crazy how small the head was. You saw the skull compared to the big brown bear I killed. Crazy how the size difference of their heads and their bodies between the sows and the boars.
Yeah, big difference.
I mean, she's old, missing all of her teeth between her canines on the top row. They were all flattened off on the bottom. I mean, really, really old bear, but lots of fat.
So you saved a lot of the fat then?
I saved everything that I could reasonably harvest. I saved, and I rendered it all down to. I did the bear oil, bear grease kind of thing that Clay Newcomb does, and we've been using it. I rendered all that fat down. I mean, crazy amounts of fat. I by net weight, I got as much meat as I got fat off that bear. It was even.
What have you used the fat for so far?
Just greasing the pan for, egg skillet, fried eggs, or doing.
Is there a flavor difference between like butter or olive oil, or you just don't notice it?
Not that I can really tell.
Really?
I mean, we've used it in place of butter or margarine and like apple pie and stuff like that. No, the bear oil it's a useful function. It's a functional thing to have around when you're cooking either deer. We put it in there to brown some deer grind or whatever. It's great, and it doesn't keep it in a dark, cupboard, and it doesn't go rancid. Just
Do you put it in sealed jars?
yeah, we canned it.
Canned it. Okay.
So it's popped and sealed up. I don't know that you have to do that, but I think as long as you have a good rendering process and it's nice and clean, the process. I had to buy my wife a new crock pot because after it was all said and done, she's like, I'm not using this one ever again. It's all covered in grease and this stuff is hard to get off. So I've got a dedicated crock pot now to just boiling fat, rendering fat.
Rendering tub, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you used it to like oil up leather or anything?
Inadvertently, yes. I spilled a bunch when I was doing it on my boots, and it seemed to work great. I mean, I do know a guy who uses it for like everything, oils his saddles for his horses and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm gonna ever. I'm not gonna harvest the fat off of every bear that I kill.
It's tough in the backcountry.
It's tough to keep your hands clean after that. Like with those wet wipes, I mean, I had to use soap, like dish soap back at camp to get all that stuff off. And when you're trying to process the meat, it was hard to hang on to the legs. We're quartering that bear up. The fat's so greasy and so slick, I could barely hang on to the meat to put it in the bags. So that becomes a, not a concern.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Something that makes it difficult to operate.
Yeah.
If you're constantly losing your grip or pulling on the hide and all that kind of stuff. It makes it tough.
Yeah.
Fatigue.
Yeah, and like I said, backcountry application, if you have to choose between meat and fat, you're going to choose the meat.
Yeah.
And especially in warmer weather, you got to get that meat out of there quick. So, yeah, it makes it tough.
So we were lucky because it was so cold
that
everything was staying nice and kind of put together. In a hot day, you kill a bear like that, the whole thing just turns into slime. Mm-hmm. That bear fat is just, I mean, that's why they call it bear grease, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, you could grease sleds with that stuff.
Yeah.
So
just pour motor oil on everything.
Yeah. So we got that bear taken care of.
Was that like on the second day, first day?
That was the first day in the morning. We were back to camp by 3:00 or so. Mm-hmm. And then we just kind of started driving the roads, kind of exploring the area. We got an animal. We're cool. Everything's good, right? We found a spot just up the road from our camp. It was a little turnout on the road, and we hiked down to this rock, and we're like, man, this is, landscape-wise, we're glassing basically the same spot where we were. We could see the spot to the south where we were glassing the morning prior, mm-hmm. and saw that bear. It was just a different basin, more north of where we were the day before, and on that morning. So we decided, we'll just come here. This is easy, quick access. We'll come here tomorrow and look for a buck, because he's got a bear tag and a buck tag too. So we had 4 tags with us, five including mine. Mm-hmm. So, the game was open still for us to kill another bear or to kill a buck. It didn't really matter. So the next morning comes around and we head to that spot and sit down. I mean, we're 50 yards from the truck. I mean, we're just on a rock, just glassing the spot, because we had to be out of there by noon on that day to get back home for other obligations. So, this is a constant problem that we have. It's always a problem when you spot something and you have to share its location with one of the guys that you're with.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's over by the tree.
Yeah,
the big pine tree.
Yeah,
by the rock, just down from the other tree. Yeah.
Well, this situation was no different. My buddy that was with spotted this buck.
Pull the mic a little closer to you. There you go.
Better?
Yeah, that's great.
Right. This buddy I was with spotted this buck, and he goes, I spotted your buck, John. And he's like, it's over there on the hill next to the... I'm like, okay, thank you. Can we be a little bit more specific? It was it felt like 10 minutes. It was probably more like 3 to 5 minutes of him and I arguing about where the deer was. He's like, he's getting frustrated. I'm getting really frustrated. Like, there's a buck. We haven't seen a buck the whole trip. Finally, I see the thing. It was like 430, 440 yards. I can't remember exactly. And it's traveling. It's actually nosing a doe, which I thought was maybe a little bit early. Maybe she was just an early doe or something like that. And I spotted him right as he was going over the hill, and he was going to be gone. And the chances of us getting back to a spot where we could see him again it wasn't going to happen. So I dialed up the rifle and put it on him, and one shot, right down.
He just dropped?
He didn't drop right there. He rolled all the way down the hill to a different spot. And then he was dead, but I put a cleanup shot in him. We found him. I mean, we hiked right over there and found him deader than a doornail. It was great. He was broke off. It was a nice little baskety 3-pointer. Typical of a lot of the 3-pointers we've been killing. Mm-hmm. But his back right tine was busted off about halfy up.
Yeah, he had a lot of character. It was a cool buck.
Which is cool, yeah. Older class of deer. Not huge, not great genetics, I don't think, but definitely a 4 to 5 year old deer. You can tell the size of his head, the way his teeth were worn down. He just didn't have the genetics to be much bigger, I don't think, than what he was.
If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, I'm going to put some pictures and videos while we're talking of this hunt on the YouTube podcast version. So if you want to check out those, shoot over to YouTube and you can watch you got some footage. Did you get any kill shots or was it just kind of pre and post? And
yeah, it was pre and post. It was the kill shot stuff was, especially on the deer. Well, the bear too, because that kind of surprised us. Mm-hmm. And it was just a run and gun kind of situation where just offhand shots and stuff like that. The deer, I had time to, I eventually started looking for him through the scope rather than using the binoculars. I ended up spotting him with binoculars just because the scope that I had on that rifle was underpowered for that kind of distance for glassing. Mm-hmm. Worked fine for killing him, obviously, but anyway, the speed at which everything happened just made it impossible to try and get any kind of footage set up.
And it's not like sometimes it's nice to just put the camera gear down and just go hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I like it for the storytelling capability.
That's true. It has a place.
You know, there's we don't just take video and footage and stuff like that for the YouTube. We do it for our families, for our friends to share the story and share the experience and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so over the course of 24 hours, we killed a buck and a bear. That buck was huge, body wise. He was 220, 240 pounds. So
man, that's a big deer.
I pulled a lot of meat off of that thing. I like to net out the meat as I do all my own butchering and everything. And so I'll weigh the meat as I'm going. And when I get to 65 pounds of meat, that's a big buck.
Mm-hmm. It is.
When you get 65 pounds off a blacktail, I think that's a good sized deer. Because the bones, I'll weigh the bones too, and I'll have 20 to 30 pounds of bones, depending on how many leg bones and stuff I'm bringing out. And I quit weighing meat on that buck at 70 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I think my archery buck this year it was under 50 pounds.
Yeah. Typical.
With bone.
Yep. Yeah. Typical. But I kind of get sometimes I'll take a little bit longer and really clean the neck meat up. And I kind of go a little bit farther than a lot of other guys will sometimes. If I have the time.
Yeah.
And, it might only net me an extra couple pounds, but that's one meal. This one meal feeds my whole family for a night. A couple pounds of deer meat. So
yeah.
Overall, it was super successful. I've never really had that kind of success in late season. And we went to this spot, kind of dart on a map kind of thing, and filled 2 out of my 3 tags. And then getting home, I have private land access to an orchard. It's kind of a transitional zone. There's orchards in the lowland, and then it gets into more grazing country, kind of in the foothills. And I just lucky enough was offered to come up and hunt. And it's funny, I told Ben, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go kill another buck on Sunday. And he goes, oh, so sure of yourself, are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. These deer are used to the farmer driving their tractor through the orchard. They move over 2 rows of trees and stop. Yeah. I mean, they're just so desensitized to that kind of human contact.
Were they chewing up his crop?
No, it's a walnut orchard. So they're just eating walnuts and, kind of moseying around inside the orchard. It's a safe place for them. They're not pressured by anybody. I mean, it's, dare I say, not a hunt.
Yeah.
You're harvest. Yeah, you're harvesting the deer. Not, we arrived. This is another one. I took the kids and my wife. We arrived to the property at like 8:00. So it's not like a super early morning. We were up at dawn or anything like that. 8:00. By 9:30, we had the buck dressed and in the cooler, and we were shaking hands and saying goodbye to the landowner. I mean,
that's a pretty sweet deal.
It was like, we were home by noon.
Wow. Yeah.
It was crazy. So those are the types of things where,
It's a road hunter's dream right there.
Right? If only that could happen in the hey, it does happen to people.
It does.
Yeah,
It does.
it's not
Yeah.
it's not impossible. But that was one of those, and again, a nice 3-pointer. Crazy how much smaller that deer was, though. He had
Like
similar.
the body, you mean?
The body, the head, everything was just downsized 25%. But the rack was similar. And then shout out to should I shout out to Kyle for doing those heads?
Yeah, for sure.
Shout out to Kyle Sibley for doing those heads for me. He's in Vacaville, and excellent job. He did the bear skull and both the deer heads.
You did Euros with both of them?
Yeah, just like this guy here.
Okay.
And
yeah, what's the name of his organization, his company?
is it Skullworks, Sibley Skullworks or something? I don't know.
He's not local to me, so I haven't used him yet.
I have to look it up. Sorry, Kyle. I can't remember. He's on Instagram. You can find him on there. But anyway, we'll shout out to him for doing a good job. He did, I think he did Ben's bison hide, or not hide, the head for the bison too.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw your, was it the bear? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was good work.
Yeah.
It looked really good.
Yeah. The bear turned out really good compared to, I had the other bear skull done elsewhere, and that one's turning really yellow and kind of not looking so great. The teeth are, Kyle took all the teeth out of that bear skull to keep them natural, kind of.
Yeah, it's a cool look.
Dirty looking. He posted it on his Instagram. And then that white skull to go with it. I think it looks way better than having all the teeth be super clean and bright and everything. It just looks so much more.
It's like organic.
Yeah, natural.
Like you'd find it on the ground somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it was in basically 4 days, I filled all 3 of my tags. And I mean, super, super grateful for that.
That's a good feat to go fill all your tags. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't happen all the time.
It doesn't. And what's funny is I think about this sometimes. I go, especially if I'm taking somebody who's like never killed anything before, it seems like we have better success
Than when you're out there by yourself?
I don't know why that is. Like if you have somebody who this is a totally new experience to them, which I found to be rather rewarding.
Oh,
actually.
It's so fun. Yeah, I was telling Ben, like, I didn't fill my bear tag last year, but it feels like I filled it 5 times.
Well, yeah. well, the subscriber hunt alone, what do we see? 10 bears?
Yeah, it was. And I actually did very little bear hunting on my own. Very little. Just the weekend with my family. I think I went out one other time for like a day. Didn't do much at all. Which I regret. I wish I would have spent more time. But it feels like I did. So yeah, it's a really fun thing. Taking somebody who's never. So I haven't shared this story. I don't even know how much you know about this story, but I filled both my deer tags last year.
Yeah, I was going to say you filled 2 deer tags though, right?
Yeah, I didn't post anything about my rifle deer. That was the most pathetic experience I've ever had hunting. So my archery deer was really fun. It's actually that deer right above your head. My first 4x4 blacktail.
The smallest 4-pointer in the world. It's actually a really nice buck. He's got a lot of cool character and mass to him.
But anyway. Yeah, that'll be a fun hunt when the video drops. You'll get to see that. But rifle season, I took a kid I know. A kid. I say kid. He's an adult. Name's Blake. He's 19. He's killed one doe. It was out of state. Never big game hunted in California. So I was like, dude, his girlfriend watches my kids. So I said to go thank your girlfriend, because if it wasn't for her, you wouldn't be out here.
Right.
But anyways, right. I told him I'll throw you a bone. I'll take you out opening weekend of rifle, which I don't do. That's a special time. It just is. It's you only get so many opening days in your life.
Right.
So I was like, I'll take you out opening morning. So opening day, I put him on a buck in the afternoon of opening day. It was a nice forky.
You did tell me this story.
Yeah. And I spotted the deer, and I actually pulled up my rifle. It was like 45, 50 yards. So it was a chip shot. Pulled up my rifle. I'm aiming down. I'm about to click the safety off, and I thought, you know what? I already have a deer in the freezer. Let's get Blake a buck. So I was like, Blake, get up here, shoot this deer. So he proceeds to shoot it in the guts, And that's where the poem "Gut Shot Gary" came from.
Yeah.
So I'll tell that story later. But anyways, he wound up getting a bear on that same hunt. We got him a bear.
And you guys never found the buck, huh?
No.
Yeah.
We searched for hours, and eventually there was good blood at first, and then it just slowly dried up, and then there was nothing. And that deer went into like a deer mecca. So there was just, the ground was just shredded with tracks. It wasn't like we could follow a track. It was like walking into a river and then your tracks just disappear. He was gone. It sucked. But anyways, the next day, I think it was the next day, we were hunting and we split up. The night before, we got stuck in a manzanita patch. We both forgot our headlamps. It got dark. And so we were using our phones, and so we got ourselves into this manzanita thicket. I've never been in anything like that before. Insane. We were on our hands and knees crawling under, like through the openings in the manzanita, and this was like probably 100 yards long. I've never seen anything like it in my life. So thick, and manzanita is like iron.
Yeah.
It's so you were getting hit in the face, and our gear broke off part of my camera. Like it tore us up. Well, in that process, the elevation on my scope, the top turret, I didn't have the cap on it. So during that process of crawling through the manzanita, the manzanita bumped my turret, and I didn't know it. So man. I had it zeroed, right? So the next day we're hunting, and I'm still hunting, so I'm moving around, and the thought just popped in my head, I better check my turret just to be safe. And I look down, and it's all the way on like 7 or 8. It's like, oh crap. But because it's not a hard stop zero, I didn't know which way it had rotated. So I guessed, set it to 0. Like 20 minutes later, I had sat down, I'm sitting on this hillside, and I'm looking down below me, and I hear a noise, and I look over to my left, and there's a buck standing like 20 yards away.
Oh, geez.
20, like right there.
Whoa.
I could have thrown a rock at him. And a dinky little thing. I mean, dinky.
Yeah, freezer buck.
Hence the lack of photos. And so I'm watching this buck, and I thought, I only have like a day left. It's meat in the freezer. The guy's legal. I almost didn't shoot him. So while I'm figuring all this out, the deer is looking at me, not knowing what's going on, because I'm sitting down, I'm being still, quiet. And he's like slow stepping, and he's watching me the whole time. And he walks down to 40 yards, stops, and he's looking at me broadside. I thought, well, this is a chip shot. Let's just put meat in the freezer.
Yeah.
So I shoot, and I break his leg.
Oh.
And I'm like, what in the world is going on? This is crazy. 40-yard shot. So the deer falls. I'm on a steep hill. He falls off to the side into a little drainage. He can't move anywhere.
Yeah.
So I feel terrible at this point. So I walk over. I shoot him again. I break his other leg.
Oh, God.
And then I realize like something's wrong with my rifle.
Yeah.
It's all screwed up. So I realized where I'm aiming at his heart every time, and I'm hitting low. So it was the 3rd or 4th shot, I was able to shoot him through the heart, and I had to aim way above him, like above his back. Man. So it was just a terrible situation.
That's gut wrenching when that kind of stuff happens.
I hate that, man. I felt so bad for that deer. I mean, luckily the whole thing happened within like less than a minute.
Yeah.
But it felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
I'm watching this deer, struggle.
Right.
But I was able to. He didn't go anywhere, so I was able to put him out of his misery super fast. But yeah, that's why that was just a bummer of a situation. But it was meat in the freezer. He expired, like I said, within a minute, no longer than 60 seconds. Yeah. It just felt like a long time.
Well, those types of things happen, man. I mean, it's hunting.
Yeah.
But the lesson. So, I had a similar situation happen with an adjustable turret without a cap, with no hard. If you have hard zero stop on your scope, then it can get bumped and you can go right back to 0, and you're confident that that's what it is. Mm-hmm. So that alleviates a lot of that stress. But if you don't have that, so I'm driving around one of the private land places that I have access to, pig hunting, and I'm hearing this noise. My kids are riding around in the truck with me, and I'm hearing this noise going, what the heck is that? It's my son, 2 years old, just twisting that turret, just having a ball. This is great, Dad. I'm like, oh God, stop. So then ensues gotta rebore sight the rifle and do all, take an hour to kind of get the thing back on where it's printing on paper. But, hey, I have another similar type of situation. I'm in the process of building a rifle for my kids. And I'm also in the process of building myself a rifle because I want to play with ballistics and hand loading. I hand load my own 30-06 ammo right now anyways for my Tika. But, I want to play with some other calibers and stuff. So I borrowed a rifle this year from that same guy that I took hunting where we killed the buck and the bear. Mm-hmm. It's custom action, 280 AI caliber with a carbon fiber barrel and all the custom built stuff. Rifle shoots great. But the big downside that I see with a lot of these custom actions is they don't have a bolt lock on the safety. When you put the gun in safe, the bolt is still you can still manipulate the bolt around the action. So like Savage, Tika, I think even Ruger, they all have either a 3-position safety where you can have it on safe where the trigger is locked out, but you can cycle the bolt. It's kind of like a middle position. Or you have, when the gun's on safe, you can't run the bolt, and you can't pull the trigger.
So it's on lockdown.
Just on lockdown. And that's the way my Tika is. And I've come to appreciate that. Because the type of hunting we do, we're always trekking through thick brush. Mm-hmm. Gun slung over your shoulder, you're trekking through high manzanita or buckbrush or whatever it might be. Well, without that, gun's on safe, sure, but that bolt lever is just hanging out there. And twice, I had that bolt open on me walking through the brush. And the shell ejects out of there. Now, if you're busting brush and a buck jumps up in front of you 100 yards away, that's imminent.
The difference between a buck and no buck.
Right.
Yeah.
You're fumbling, trying to figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's kind of, if you're looking into, now if you're just bench shooting or you're going up to a spot and you're sniping deer 600 yards away or something like that, that's not a concern for you. But for me, it is a concern. That's one of those things I look for in an action. And when it comes to gear and equipment, the more time that we spend in the field collectively, the three of us, those are kind of tips, knowledge that we're gaining. So have a dust cap on your turret, or at least have a hard zero stop.
Yeah.
Have a rifle that the bolt doesn't open when you're walking through thick brush. That's a big problem. Mm-hmm. It's the difference between, like you said, a deer or no deer. Because a lot of times you only get one shot off.
Yeah, exactly.
In those types of situations.
I got lucky. I mean, if I would have been 3 inches to the left, that deer just ran off at 40 yards.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You'd have to get Ben's perspective on this story. So we were coming back from kind of a town run during the archery hunt with the subscriber. And we're coming up to a big meadow area, and there's a buck. Real high-horned fork and horn. So Ben takes off, goes across this field, and he shoots this thing. And you can see the blood pumping out of this deer. And there's good blood where we initially found his trail. And we trailed that thing in the dark. We kind of let it sit for a little bit, and we trailed that thing in the dark for a little while. But we ended up getting into a similar thicket of manzanita brush right next to this just sheer cliff wall drainage. And it's the first time I've fallen like big time in a while. I was leaning on a broken, like dead piece of manzanita, and it broke off from behind me. I had the camera, Ben's camera, in my hand, and I fell over backwards, and I'm hanging upside down on the sidewall of this creek drainage, and Ben's in front of me, kind of on the other side of this cliff. Can't do anything to try and help me. I'm all cut up. My back's all bruised and cut up and everything from the
Did
from
your
the
feet
sharp.
get caught in the manzanita?
My feet were above me, and I was hanging completely upside down with a $3,000 camera in my hand. and Ben's like, "Don't drop my camera."
You can die, but
I was like, "Oh, you all right? Oh, don't. Is the camera okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little old for this, but." That was you have to get Ben's perspective on it because my perspective. I don't know if I was filming when that happened or not. That'd be interesting footage though. It was just I'm lucky I didn't fall. In fact, the bush that I landed on that cut me up saved me from falling all the way down into the bottom of the creek.
Dude, that could have been bad.
It would have been really bad. But anyway, I was able to kind of twist myself around and right myself and then find a different path to get to where Ben was. But we ended up losing that deer too. We went back the next day and looked for more than half a day. We were down there past noon in the sun, the heat, looking for blood.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
It just petered out.
Yeah.
We found like the last drop of blood, and then we started gritting from there. Just going, what's the most likely path for this deer that's wounded? Mm-hmm. Where's it going to go? Let's, eliminate those. We looked under every bush, under every rock, under everything, looking for that thing, just expecting it to be dead somewhere. We never found it. We searched. Ben and I are good trackers, and we never found it, man.
Yeah, they're tough suckers, man.
It was just the amount of blood that thing had coming out of it when he first made the shot is crazy to me that we weren't able to recover that deer.
Same thing with Blake's deer. It bedded down maybe 50, 60 yards from the shot, and there was just a pool of blood right there.
Yeah.
And then just dried up. It's crazy. They're tough. They're tough survivors.
Well, Ben and I kind of, post-mortem, we're like, we shouldn't have trailed that deer in the dark. We should have just come back in the morning.
You think you pushed it?
I think we did. Ben, I'm pretty sure we both have the same feeling on that.
Yeah.
But in the moment, you're just you're so sure that it was a good hit and you saw the blood coming out of it. Oh, the deer's going to die soon. So even as a seasoned hunter, that's like a rookie mistake, right?
You get a little overconfident because it doesn't happen to us.
Well, it doesn't happen often.
Ever.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. Like the bear that you lost.
Same situation.
Same situation. I was down in the bottom of that canyon. We kind of split up when that happened. And instead of being quiet and going up and just cleaning up the shot and finishing that bear off, I hollered to you guys. I'm like, oh yeah, he's down here. I expected it was a good shot, that the bear was going to just die right around that that tamarack.
Overconfident, yeah.
And we end up that bear was right on the other side of that tree. Now that tree was like,
we were 10 feet away from it.
Yeah, that tree was like 10 feet around. It was huge.
It was huge.
But we ended up walking up right on top of it. And anyway, just hunting, man.
Lessons learned.
Yeah, we learn a lot of stuff, and it seems like some of those lessons we have to be taught several times.
Yeah. Whenever you think you're good, you're reminded you got a lot to learn. Every time. Every time. That's the beauty of hunting, though. You're always learning.
Yeah.
So, well, that was fun. It was a fun recap.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this year. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Great
I
year.
gotta figure out an out of state hunt for this year. I want to get into the routine of at least having one elk hunt every couple years, every other year kind of thing.
When we get closer to elk season, let's do another chat about your Utah hunt a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
John, if you don't know, John did a solo backcountry elk hunt in Utah. What was that? 4 years ago? 3 years?
2020.
Has it been that long?
That was COVID, man.
Wow.
Because we went to Idaho the year prior.
Yeah.
Or 2 years prior, I think, in 2018 for our first elk hunt together.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And then the next year you went to Utah?
No, then the next year we didn't go out of state. And then in 2020 we went.
Okay.
Because you guys went to Colorado. Like, as the crow flies, we were, hunting 100 miles from each other. Mm-hmm. You guys were in Colorado. I was in Utah. Over the counter tag type of deal. But yeah, no, that was
I want to hear about that one.
Yeah.
A refresher. But yeah, that was fun. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up this year. Stay tuned. The bear hunt news. The bear hunt call. Gosh, let me read. The bear call news is coming out really soon. Look for that. Super excited about that. And we will see you on the next podcast.